Okay, we're going to start.
It's the
A
afternoon.
lot never boils, and in a retreat, if you wait for everybody to come in, you never get started. So we're going to get started, and everybody will crowd in now because they know somehow mystically that we're started. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the forms that we showed you? It's really nice and convenient now. We only have to bring 2 forms instead of bringing 4 of them. And it makes it a lot easier to go over quickly. There are a couple of...
Question.
Sure.
I have a question. The healthcare power of attorney, the like do not resuscitate order or whatever, all those kind of deals. What is a good recommendation, a desire for natural death and national death? What is a good recommendation for getting those papers in front of the people that, I have 2 parts to the question. Getting these papers to the people that will be the ones that will communicate on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, and more importantly, that the people for, like doctors, hospitals, whatever, that they will in fact obey what's written in the paper and not blow them off. Because I've heard story after story about them not following and saying, well, we're just going to do it anyway because we don't believe we'll be liable if we don't resuscitate this person. Right. That's what I'm really concerned.
Let me address that first.
Okay.
That's probably the most
That's
important.
really what I meant.
And we talked about the Roman Catholic forms of 5 wishes. One of the most important things that document lacked was a HIPAA release. And just by the way, these are not just our forms. These forms have been vetted by attorneys, bioethicists, Orthodox theologians. They've been gone over by a lot of people. And our objective was to make them applicable in all 50 states, which turned out to be easier than what I thought it would be. But the HIPAA release is absolutely vital. Father's absolutely right. If you go in with a form in your hand and say, this is what I want, they're going to ignore it unless you release them from all responsibility for anything they do or don't do on your behalf, under the direction of your, and the HIPAA release is in there. It's in those forms to release them as liability.
You can take a form to the hospital that you normally go to,
Mhm.
and they will put it with the records.
Yes.
They will ask you to have those.
Yeah, they should ask when someone comes in the hospital, but that's part of what we're here to encourage today. One, the first part of your question, Father, the original of these forms should be with the person who has your power of attorney. And obviously, you're going to ask them to agree to do that. And there's also an alternate power of attorney on this form. You're going to ask that person if my brother is incapacitated or for some reason can't act as power of attorney, would you do that for me? When we did the first batch of forms and we were working on them, I told my wife, I said, honey, if it comes down to it, I don't want you to have to make these decisions. I think I'm going to name Father John as my power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. And she says, oh no. Anybody's pulling the plug on you, it's going to be me. And that's the truth.
I want to mention one thing.
Life and death, right?
A lot of times people do their power of attorney and, any funeral plans, and they put it in their safe deposit box. And their family doesn't even see them until after they're
Right.
buried and everything else. So it's really...
So the original needs to be with the person who has your power of attorney. Copies need to go to the people who need to have it.
Yeah.
Your spouse needs to know where it is. Your children, brothers and sisters, close family members and friends who need to know this information. And we also really advocate, I don't know if anyone has taken up this task because it's more paperwork, it's more trouble. We're all small churches. We really recommend that a copy of this paperwork be in the church, that everyone's paperwork be here, so that if none of those, people are available or whatever, the priest can go in the file and say, okay, here's Mark's paperwork. I'm going to the hospital. I'm going to take it with me. And then someone should take the responsibility of delivering that paperwork to the hospital. That's another one of the first steps of organizing here that we talk about is talking to the hospital. I don't know, I know we passed one just right down the street, I think, on the way up here. If you have a particular hospital that most of your people are going to go to, talk with them, talk with the administrator. What are your protocols? This is what we do. What do you need from us to make that task easier for you so that we can coordinate? Communication is everything and anything in life. We need to communicate with them, educate them, and that goes for every step in this process. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if a digital copy is just as good as, because if we could just have a digital file of everybody's paperwork, then it's like if the priest was somewhere, he'd have it on his phone, on his, be accessible instead of him coming all the way either back here.
I would want to, I want to talk with an attorney about that. I can't advise you on California law.
Anyway, it wouldn't be the original.
I know in my occupation and in most things we're dealing with these days, most states say that an electronic copy is as valid as the original, but the original will always trump. It will always be, if someone shows up with a different original, it will always take precedence. But I would ask an attorney if that's okay. It sounds like it's a great idea.
Make sure there's a real signature on it.
Yeah.
Like a photo of the document that's been wet signed is good. But
Yeah.
don't just
Well,
type
it
your
wouldn't,
name
it
in.
wouldn't
Yeah.
be, it wouldn't be the original, but at least then, like, Paul Patrick would be able to bring up, somebody's records and say who it was and contact that person.
Mhm.
Even that, knowing who the power of attorneys
Right.
are for a certain person,
And
would be
contact.
helpful information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be a
And
great
that's
thing
just
to
a
do.
scan, yeah.
I want to say one thing before we better move on, because you won't have time. Don't forget that financial power of attorney, because again, a lot of times that's in a safe deposit box. But what if Mark, God forbid, had a stroke tomorrow, couldn't talk, or was in something, and I needed money to be able to take care of him, or your parent, you need money to take care of them. Do you have access to that money? If you don't have power of attorney, you don't. One thing that we've done, and I can't recommend it for everybody because you got to really have some trust there. We have each other's power of attorney for everything financial and medical, but we have our money in our kids' names. And not completely, but everything we have has one of our names and one of our children's names. Sometimes a family, you can't always do that or trust them, but if anything happens, they have complete access to the money to take care of us.
They have instant access.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. Yes, Father.
So can you explain the idea of a trust and how does that work?
I can't. You need to talk with an attorney about that. I don't know anything about trusts and legal issues.
Okay, and does this packet suffice for where we don't have to go meet with a lawyer to work out the paperwork?
It should. I would recommend that someone, if you know a lawyer, I would think in all the churches around here, there's got to be an attorney that goes to one of these churches, an Orthodox attorney, who would be willing to look at it and see if there are any California problems. What I understand and what really makes this thing applicable in all 50 states is it's not so much the wording in the document. You can handwrite a document, but it's something called the formality of signature that differs from state to state. Some states only require a signature and a witness. Some states require a signature and two witnesses. Some states require a signature and a notary. So you'll notice on these, we have the most formal form of signature that you can have, which should cover even those states that only require one signature and a witness. So that's what really makes it applicable in all the states. There are two Other forms that you need to, your last will and testament you definitely need to have. Some states differ on how financial estates are handled, but I can only talk from South Carolina because that's what I know. The will is to handle everything that doesn't transfer directly to a survivor. Elizabeth mentioned that we have 2 people on every account. Every single account always has 2 people. I don't have anything that's solely in my name. We travel a lot. We love to travel, and we travel together. And a few years back, I got a note from Vanguard that said for some reason she couldn't be my beneficiary anymore in Vanguard. So we thought about it a little bit. And we said, okay, how do we handle this? And so we made sure that everything was divided roughly equally between the 2 of us. One son is the co-owner on my account. The other son is the co-owner on her account. They don't know that. But if they ever need it, they'll find out. And then it will be very good for them. Yeah. We always, my dad taught me this from the time I was very little. Always have 2 people on every account because you're co-owners. And if one dies, the other immediately takes possession. It's their account. It does not go through probate. What probate is, the will covers probate. Anything that does not transfer automatically to another owner goes into probate. And what probate is basically the estate is held by the court. The court puts out a notice that says, Mark Barna has died. If you think he owes you money, come and talk to us. That's what probate is. Mark Barna has died. If he owes you money, come and make a claim at the court.
It could take years.
And it can take a long, long time. So it's really, take a look at all of your finances and think about these things and think about who you want to inherit it and can it transfer automatically. As she said, we're really blessed. We have 2 sons that we trust with our lives and our finances. So.
Yeah. My wife and I have set up a revocable trust, and I think that's what Father was asking.
Yeah.
A revocable trust is you set things up and you have an executor in the trust. And while both of us are alive, or either one of us are alive, it's fine because the name of it is our name, but it's a trust. It's not, our trust owns it, of what we have, not us. So if either one of us goes away, the other one can carry on without a blink. And if we both die, then our son can carry on without a blink. This is the important thing. And in a will, you put in the disposition of your assets as you like. And that, of course,
So that's eliminates probate, right?
that's correct.
Yes.
Yes. Both of these things eliminate.
The will is governed the things that are in probate when they go to probate. That's what the will is
But
for.
we found a lawyer in Upland that was recommended to us by Margaret Pint, who's a member of our parish here. He's done very well by us. If you want some information, I'll give it to you on the side.
The will is something that needs to be done with care. There are a lot of ins and outs to it. Basically, my attorney is also my best friend, and he taught me about these things. You basically have to think about every possible thing that could happen. And I have a generic will if anyone would just like to see it. I'm not saying that it's what you want to use, but we went through that process and thought about, okay, what if Elizabeth dies before I do? Okay, it's my will, so obviously I'm dead. What if she dies before I do? Well, the 2 sons inherit it. What happens if one of the sons dies? What happens if both of the sons predecease me? What happens if one of the sons is divorced and predeceased me? You think about this stuff, and it's pretty much in there in this generic copy that I have. It can help you think through it. If you'd like to have it, you can contact me at christianending.com, christianending@yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to send you that generic copy of a will. The other form that Elizabeth mentioned, and I am not telling you to go do this is the durable power of attorney. I'm just mentioning it to you. You can discuss this with your attorney and with your spouse or whatever. If you are in a caregiving position, though, you need this document for the person you're caring for. You need it. Understand that a durable power of attorney gives the person you name total control over your life. The healthcare power of attorney only comes into play if you are incapacitated. A durable power of attorney gives them carte blanche over your finances and everything else having to do with your life. It's a loaded time bomb, and you really need to approach it really carefully and know what you're doing. We've been together over 40 years. We've been married for 39. We think we're pretty safe. You know, I have power of attorney for her. She has it for me. Obviously, if you're our primary caregiver for a parent, brother, sister, loved one, you need their durable power of attorney, because you need to be able to make any decisions regarding their mortgage, their real estate, their bank, and all of those things. You need to have access to their money. You need to be able to take care of business, to take care of them. So if you're approaching that, you need to try broach that subject with a parent, if that's what you need to do, and get that taken care of. Because the closer you get, and once they're diagnosed with dementia, it becomes much harder to get that document. So that's important to know. I was told I need to mention that we do have a book. We wrote a book. That's why we're here. Don't write a book. People start thinking you know something when you write a book. It is here. It's available. I know we have some copies left. We have a few up here.
We've sold all but 2.
Okay, and we have a few more up here. And if you would like for us to sign a copy, we'd be happy to do that while we're here. So that's the advertisement for this
Will you
afternoon.
be here tomorrow
Yes, we'll be
at
here.
this parish?
Yes, we'll be
With
here.
books?
And not unless they're all gone, yeah, then we'll be here.
It's like table outside.
And we'll take orders. You can take orders. Staff he'll take the orders.
They just won't be signed.
So all of this is part of, y'all came back, so I guess you're still interested in what we're talking about. So we're going to assume that we're actually thinking about doing these things. So, excuse me. How do we organize this? How do we get started? How do you start doing this? I told you this morning that ours was an emergency situation. It just, boom, and we were thrown into it. Fortunately, we had thought about it. I had thought about what will we do if we actually start doing this, and I wrote a list of instructions for us, and that was kind of the genesis for the book. The book is A Christian Ending, a handbook for burial in the ancient Christian tradition, and it is a handbook. It's step by step by step. How do you deal with the funeral directors? How do you deal with the hospitals? And how do you prepare a body for burial? If you're considering doing this, the last person in the world you want to talk to is a funeral director. If you didn't hear that this morning, I'm going to repeat it. He will lie to your face. You can't believe what they tell you. I'm sorry. I know there must be reputable funeral directors out there. I keep hearing rumors about it. I've just never met one. And the history of their industry is one of abuses that you just really can't believe. That's the last person you want to talk to. The first step, I think, and we agree on this, the first step in organizing is to create a visitation ministry if you don't already have one. That really is the first step. When someone goes in the hospital, people go and visit. They know that someone's in the hospital, they go. Probably every church that's represented here has someone in that church that just does this. They do it naturally. I know we do. We have 2 or 3 of them who anytime somebody's in the hospital, they're there. That's just what they do. They do it naturally. I'm not that person. But if someone called me and said, hey, so-and-so's in the hospital, would you go see him? Yeah, sure, I'll go. So it helps to have a core of people who are willing and able to go visit people in the hospital. The priest may not be able to keep up with everyone. He's got his hands full. And it's very helpful for him to have people who are going to the hospital when he's not there to say, hey, Father, I saw Betsy today and she's not doing well. You know, things like that, to keep him posted on what's going on in case he can't be there. And to talk so that the administration, the nurses, particularly the ones on the floor, know that we're there, know that we care, and know what it is we expect to do. Probably the best way to communicate with them, even though it's not 100% true, is it's just like what the Jews do. They understand that. They understand what the Jewish patient needs in the hospital when they die. And it's something they can relate to. It's not 100% the same thing, but they understand that. And anytime we meet any sort of resistance, as Father mentioned earlier, well, it's just like what the Jews do. You can't deny us the opportunity to do this because we're Christians. Our tradition follows out of the Jewish tradition. They're much more rigid in the way that they do things, and we have a whole lot more flexibility, but it's just like what the Jews do. Having a phone tree is a great thing. We rely on email a lot, and I don't do a lot of email. I mean, I do a lot of email, but it's all at work. When I come home, I don't want to see a computer. Don't want to see it. When I come, I don't have my cell phone with me today. When I come home, my cell phone goes on the charger, goes in the drawer. I know I'm rare, but there are some of us out there who don't want to be tethered to technology. So the old-fashioned phone tree is a good thing to have, even though you won't reach me on my cell phone most of the time. I do answer it when it rings. I just don't check email on it, and I don't check text. If I'm around and it rings, I'll pick it up. Get a kit together. The contents of the kit are also in the book. We've modified a few things. It's a nice thing about being asked to do a second edition. You get to change things that you've learned over time. When they asked if we wanted to do a second edition, my knee-jerk answer was no. But we talked about it a little bit. Elizabeth said, we have learned a lot in the last 10 years. Maybe we should think about doing this. So I realized that the reason I said no was a very valid reason, because I told the publisher, it'll probably take a couple of weeks. We'll write a chapter on cremation, and we'll clean up some things and change some things that we've learned. It took 3 months. So it's not easy. The first thing you should have in your kit is a copy of the book. This is the handbook, right? Step-by-step instructions on what to do. We have a cross and an icon in the kit. We have a censer and charcoal and a lighter. We have the New Testament and the Psalms, surgical gloves, wet wipes, antibacterial cleanser, washcloths and sponges for anointing, a plastic basin, shampoo, and the list goes on. And all of this fits in a airline carry-on bag, which is really convenient when they call you and ask you to go bury the Archbishop. It goes on the plane. TSA doesn't quite know how to handle it. So I wrote it has a handwritten note that goes right on the top of everything when the TSA opens it. It says, TSA, This kit is for the preparation of a body for burial. I figure after reading that, they ain't going any further. But at least if they do, they'll understand why there are liquids in there, we have the anointing oil is in there. Just really everything you need to do. And actually, there's everything in there you would need to prepare 2 bodies usually. And some things or others. We have diapers in there, all kinds of things. So that's in here. Talk with the people in your church. You know, who's interested in doing this? I can't imagine how you would do this without the support of your priest. So I'm really, really gratified to have so many priests here today. I've had people tell us that we're really interested in this, and I have a small group of people who are really interested in this, but our priest just thinks it's silly and our priest doesn't want anything to do with it. And I can't, what should we do? What can I tell you? I don't know how anyone would begin this ministry without the wholehearted support of their priest. You're going to probably meet enough resistance from other parishioners that you don't need your priest's resistance as well. And it doesn't necessarily have to be wholehearted participation. He at least has to say, yeah, I'm not going to tell people no. I think it would be fine. There are, as I mentioned this morning, there are lots and lots and lots of things that people can do that have nothing to do with dealing with a dead body. Just think about it. There are flowers, there's a mercy meal, there's contacting, especially in a tragic death or an emergency, contacting relatives, contacting friends, putting the obituary together, getting it done, maybe picking up family at the airport, at the train station, at the bus station. Or there's a lot of things that people can do to contribute to this ministry without ever having to touch a dead body. And remember, it only takes 2 people to prepare a body. One person can do it, but it's not safe. I don't recommend it. I think with my experience, I could probably manage it. It depends on a lot of things, not to mention the size of the body. But are there any healthcare workers in here? Nurses? Yeah. So you've had training in body mechanics and how to move a body around. It's not that simple, and you need to know. We're going to talk about that as we go this afternoon. But you need 2 people to do this. Yes?
So Deacon Mark, would it be optimal to have a team of 4 for each parish, so 2 guys and 2 gals?
Absolutely.
Depending on,
Yes.
right.
That's at least that. And you need a reader. So it takes 3 people in the room. You don't have to have a reader. In fact, in the book we say if you don't have a reader, there's actually a service in the book. I searched, I don't read Greek. I don't, there may be a service out there for the preparation of a body for burial. It's hard for me to believe we don't have one, but I've never seen it. So we got together with our priests.
Just the reading of the Psalter.
It's the reading of the Psalter, yeah. It's a typical Orthodox service that has prayers, reading of the Psalter, the epistle, the gospel, and more prayers and readings. So what we did was try to choose psalms that are particularly helpful at this time. They all are. There's no question about it. But ones that will give some solace to the bereaved as well as whatever help they can give to the deceased. I mean, who knows? But we know that the reading of Scripture, and particularly the Psalms, is beneficial at all times. But the reading of the Psalter is prescribed for this time. From the moment of death until the beginning of the funeral, we read the book of Psalms over the body. So we know it has some beneficial effect that we don't know about.
With periodic Tricedium, memorial service.
Exactly. You only stop for services. So 2 people and a reader. Again, 10 years of experience. You may find this strange, but I really recommend that you limit the number of people in the room to 5. Now, why would you have more than 5? What? We had a beloved parishioner pass away, subdeacon. He died at 3 o'clock in the morning, as always expected. And we got the call. When we arrived at his house, there were at least 20 people there at 3 o'clock in the morning on John's Island. And every single one of them wanted to be in the room and put their hands on him and help. It became for us, it became a management job. Father John and I met there, and we were ready to prepare the body for burial, and we ended up just managing people. Okay, you read, it's line up here, it's one reader after another, and then you can come over here, and so limit the number of people in the room to 5, if at all possible. I mean, you don't want to reject people, it's a pastoral issue, but it became very difficult. So 5 is pretty much an optimum number. You need to, I mentioned, consider maintaining the parishioners' files at the church, copies, not the originals. Also, remember that at the time of death, safe deposit boxes are sealed. Do not keep any of these important papers in the safe deposit box. They're sealed until after probate. You can't get to them from the moment of death. So pull them out, put them in a safe place, have a safe at home or somewhere else. But of course, your executor or your power of attorney is going to be responsible for the originals anyway. Research cemeteries and funeral homes. There is nothing to prevent you, and we strongly encourage churches to band together, to raise funds, to establish an Orthodox cemetery if you don't already have one. I can't tell you how important that really is. We don't think about it much, but it really is important for us to have our own consecrated ground that we control where we can bury people. It doesn't take a lot of land. Believe it or not, 1 acre of ground will lend 500 graves. Cemetery is a very lucrative business. 1 acre for
1 acre is
500 graves. It blew my mind. We were working with a church up in Indiana who had a perfect flat 1 acre, and I asked Father Alexis, how many graves can you get? 500. So, church our size, going to take generations to fill that up. You don't need that. You don't need that much. But you could have several churches go together and have a couple of acres of ground somewhere, not too far away, and establish a cemetery. Yes, Father?
So, in the old country where they have the above the ground,
The ossuary?
yeah, is that illegal in the U.S. or why isn't that?
I don't think so, and I'm a huge advocate for the ossuary. I would love to have a cemetery with an ossuary in it. And that's another thing I wanted to mention, that we don't need a lot of land because we recycle. We reuse the graves. And in any bylaws or any organizational documents, and anytime someone would sign a contract to be buried in our cemetery, I would have that document state that they understand at some point they're going to be dug up and their bones will be stored in the ossuary. Anyone who's been to a monastery that has an ossuary, who's ever seen one, has ever visited one, knows what an awesome thing it is. And St. John Chrysostom told his people, go and pray in the cemetery. Tomorrow, that is you. Don't forget, that's you tomorrow. And that's why the monasteries do this. I was on Athos in September. Thanks be to God, I was able to finally get there and visited a couple of ossuaries at different monasteries. And it's very, very powerful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And we really need to do that. It's a constant, in-your-face reminder that tomorrow this is you. It's very hard to be there and not have that feeling. What have I forgotten about organizing and putting it together?
Deacon Mark, would you say it's also a good alternative to actually, like if there's a monastery that you frequent, to maybe approach the abbess or abbot and ask if you can be buried there? Is that also?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what we do.
We have a headstone. already.
We have a 2-acre plot of land that was donated to us. It's about an hour and a half away. But most people still, we haven't used it yet. Most people, still elect to be buried at Saints Mary and Martha Monastery, which is 2 hours away. And I personally don't think 2 hours is too far to travel to bury a brother or sister. I really don't. I just don't think that's too far, too much to ask. Not everyone can do it every time, but, you know, I don't think it's too much.
2 hours is down the street for us.
Yeah, I learned that yesterday. Yeah. It's 3 hours to the airport. Yeah.
We actually have a headstone at St. Mary and Martha says Barna, so the kids don't even have to get that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
a big plot, his mom and dad are already, and we're just all in there together.
I have a question to have of my parish, and perhaps you priests maybe would find help in this. We're at the point, and you're here actually as a key element in we've already been at work on many of these fronts that you mentioned. But some of our lay men and women who are definitely taking the initiative in this, with my blessing, are in the work of organizing a burial society ministry, a ministry of doing exactly what you're talking about. Could you address us then to help us with our thinking? Like, first things first, thank you. First things first, like, check. Like, I know your book's got a lot of details in it, but now I'm speaking about a parish ministry. Like, what are things that we can just sort of like say, okay, we need to get this in place, that in place, blah, blah, blah.
Everybody asks that.
So easy.
It's all, they're surprised to learn that after 10 years, our burial society consists of me, Elizabeth, and Father John.
With other
We
people
do
that
have
help.
it. That's
But you have
that's
people-
sort of a joke. We have people who are ready to help at any time. This is not something you do every week.
Of course.
This is not something you do every month. You may not have a funeral for 3 or 4 years.
Okay, we have not
Yeah.
had a funeral in this church
Mhm.
since Theodore Green. Okay.
And that was done by the military. So
And
we
that
have
was
a
done by
template.
the mill. So
Mhm.
we're a young parish, we haven't, but I look over my parish and I see people who are getting older by the day, and some of them are really getting old.
And it's not a matter of age.
And then it's gonna be a deal where when it rains, it snows.
Mhm.
All right? So I don't wanna come up to that last day.
Well, that's-
And not be
Yeah.
ready. I
That's
don't wanna
really-
be called in any
Yeah.
funeral parlor,
No, I'm trying, that's really what I'm trying to do
and that's what
now,
I'm asking.
is understand state law. It's really a first step.
Okay.
You don't have to have any sort of, we don't have a charter, we don't have any organization. Someone dies, Father calls me, I call somebody else, Elizabeth and I, we have the kit is ready. That's the number one thing, have everything available. I can pick up that airport carry-on, throw it in the car, stop at the grocery store on the way to the house to get some dry ice, and we're there. We're doing it. It's people, we love to overcomplicate things that are actually very, very simple and very easy to do. But really, the very first step, understand your state law. Understand if you need help, there's bound to be an Orthodox attorney somewhere in LA that might be willing to help us for free. But anyone can read law. Just read it. If there's something you don't understand about it, then talk to an attorney about it. But you can certainly read it. I read every statute and every regulation in South Carolina. And when I got to the very last sentence of all of those statutes and regulations, it said, these regulations do not apply to home funerals and church burials. So there are no regulations in South Carolina on family funerals and church burials. It's really, and you think about it, you go, like I said, we're so used to everything being illegal. You know, there's a law against everything that we don't even think about. This is so unregulated that, anyone can do it, and why not? We've been doing it forever. As long as there have been human beings, we've been burying our own dead. We don't need professionals for this.
Right.
Yes, Father?
The two hangups that I've witnessed for the two funerals that I've done here in California are one, getting that signature from the doctor, which for some reason, even from the mortuary, took several days. At the earliest I've seen so far from the two were 4 days. The other thing was scheduling the burial of when the cemetery was available to receive the body.
Really?
So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if that's just my area or if that's a California thing, but
No,
What's-
most
it's a
most
real-
California cemeteries are closed on Saturday and Sunday. Holidays, Monday holidays, Fridays, at noon, and so it's tough.
We are very fortunate that as Christians, we don't have the very strict timetables that the Muslims and Jews have.
Right.
But this is another really good reason to have our own cemetery, that we can use it whenever we need to.
Okay, number one, Cal
Yes.
state laws. Number two?
Have a kit, put a kit together.
Get your kid together.
Get your kit together.
It's very important that, as Father was talking about earlier, that you know where to file that paperwork, where you have to go, what you have to do. And we have found, too, that things differ from county to county. Would you tell them about Peter and how that was?
The next step, talk to your county coroner. Call them up. I don't know what LA's like, but she was extremely helpful to me.
In what way?
She spent about an hour on the phone with me, talking about this and that and this and that, and telling, my question was, well, it also helped that I told her I had 3 parents living with me. What happens if one of them dies? I need to know what's the procedures, what do I do? So when people hear that, they're usually very helpful, at least in the South. I don't know what they're like. No, California is not, even Southern California is not the South. Just like Florida is not the South. You just have to go through the South to get to it. Yes, sir.
Deacon, I think you sort of touched on this. What do you do, and have you had experience where maybe either the children or the parents aren't Orthodox? It seems like you'd have to bring them into this process before you sort of go, oh, by the way, we're not going to a funeral home, we're going to do this. And either the kids aren't Orthodox in the way, we don't like that, or something objects.
Well, that's a pastoral matter, but it's also a matter that's handled by taking care of your paperwork. Get your paperwork in
They
order.
might be Orthodox by the end of it.
And, amen. And get a copy to the parents. It would be my responsibility, not yours, to get a copy to my parents, to my siblings, so that the people in my life who matter know what it is that I want and they know what to expect. I had a good friend of ours was ill and was expected to die at some point, and I got a call one afternoon from a beautiful young lady who said, is this Deacon Mark? He said, no, she said, is this Mark Barna? I said, yes. She said, Deacon Mark? I said, yes. She said, my father is Tom Herbert. We knew him as Peter, and we always talk of him as Peter. And she said, my grandfather said, when I die, call Deacon Mark, he knows what to do.
Ooh,
What does that mean?
puts it all on you.
So I told her what that meant. I said, here's what we'll do. So the way we would normally handle it with family who is not aware, and you have the papers there to back it up because the paperwork is done, this is what your loved one wanted. This is what we're prepared to do. We're prepared to handle everything. You don't have to do a thing. But be there, but we welcome you to be with us, to observe, so that, it goes without saying, so we're not doing something weird with your loved one's body. surprisingly to us, the universal reaction has been, watch, heck, I want to help. And the family gets involved.
Yeah.
This same young lady, when Peter died, petite little rancher from Montana, beautiful girl.
Cowgirl? She's
Cowgirl, she's a rancher from Montana. And his grandson, who's a Marine. So we're standing in the alley outside the Medical University morgue. They're always in the alley, you know. And we were just standing out there getting ready to go in, and these two young people walk up. I'd never met them. I wasn't expecting them. And they walk up and say, "Are you Deacon Mark?" "Yes." "Well, we are who we are. Our mom told us to come down here and see you. What are we going to do?" "Okay. Well, your granddad has died. We're going to prepare him for burial." "Well, what does that mean?" "Well, imagine for a minute that you have been called to greet the king. What will you do? You'll bathe, wash your hair, put on clean clothes, probably do your nails. You might even get a hairdo. I don't know. But you're going to prepare yourself. You're going to put on your best clothes. You're going to prepare to greet the king. Your grandfather has been called to greet the king, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do all that for him." "Oh, great." So we went into the morgue, and they just did it. It was wonderful. They loved their grandpa. They loved him a lot. He loved them. And it was the greatest honor that they could show him, that they were willing to do that without question. "Yeah, what are we going to do?" "Well, we're going to go in and touch a dead body, if you don't mind." And there's a lot more to that story, but it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's typical of people when we say, this is what, another typical reaction is, "You can do that? You can do that?" Yes. Yes, and that's what we've done it before. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it for your mom, for your dad. We're going to do it right now.
Can I bring up a point that I want you to talk about?
Yes.
Because you mentioned that Peter was at the morgue. You can keep a body at home if you have nowhere to prepare. We have a good relationship with the morgue director. Sometimes we'll use a funeral home just for the refrigeration if it's going to be a long time.
Right.
So there's a lot of different options there. So just if you're wondering why we were doing him at the morgue, that's just where we had.
Well, that's another part, and we can talk about that right now. Julius Fielding is actually mentioned in the dedication of the book. He's the fellow who this morning said, "We've had Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists in here. You're the first Christians." He became a very good friend. I've learned an awful lot from him because we were the first Christians. And he's a Christian. And he's like, "Oh, it's about time.
Yeah.
Why don't Christians do this?" They really hadn't thought about it.
Right.
But when he saw Christians doing it, he just fell in love with us. He said, "I knew there was something I like about you."
Excuse
Talk
me,
to-
is this the morgue, like the county morgue?
No, this is the Medical University morgue.
Medical university?
Yes. Talk to your coroner. Most likely the only time a body is going to go to the medical examiner is for an autopsy. You're probably not going to need to do that. But if you have multiple jurisdictions, you need to talk to each of those coroners, and we learned that with Peter. I knew where Peter lived. I visited him. We were there many times. I knew he lived in Berkeley County, not Charleston County. Yeah, well, yeah, that's another story.
Yeah.
But it just, I completely blew it. I just never thought that I should call the Berkeley County coroner. We knew he was going to die. I just completely blew it. So Peter died around midnight on a Saturday night. And we needed to get the paperwork done. We needed to get a death certificate, get the burial, removal, and transportation permit, and take his body to be for preparation. We did an initial preparation, as I describe in the book. We did it there in his bed, but we needed to get him to the church where we could finish it. And that's when it occurred to me, oh, we're in Berkeley County. We have to call the Berkeley County coroner. Okay, it's midnight on Saturday night. Who's on duty in the coroner's office? The low man on the totem pole. It ain't the coroner. It's the new guy. He wasn't about to release that body to anybody. He'd never heard of us. What are you talking about? Oh my goodness. So we called the medical university morgue, and lo and behold, thanks be to God, Julius Fielding answered the phone. Now he's the director of the medical university morgue. What's he doing there at midnight on Saturday night? But he was there. He said, he talked with Father John, and he said, don't worry, I'll call you back in a few minutes. He called back in about 10 minutes and said, don't worry about a thing. The Berkeley County coroner is going to release the body to me. I've arranged for a transport company to bring the body to MUSC morgue. You guys come over here tomorrow and prepare his body. So all of it worked out, even though I blew it. That brings up another important thing to know. When funeral directors need to pick up a body, they don't go get it themselves. This was news to me. There are companies out there that are transport companies. They are contracted by the funeral director to go pick up a body. And instead of it costing $1,500, that is I mentioned the basic services fee. If all you want the funeral director to do is go pick up a body and bring it to the church, $1,500, plus the cost of the hearse, plus the cost of the driver. But they will charge you that $1,500. So instead of $1,500 plus, it was $150 to get him transferred to MUSC morgue. And that we could handle, no problem. So that's an important thing to know. If you can do some research on that and find out about a transport company, that I'm sure they have them out here.
If a person dies at home in bed of natural causes, don't you have to call paramedics?
It depends, and that's something you need to talk to your coroner about. It's one of the things that I asked my coroner, and one of the reasons we were on the phone so long. I said, okay, I have 3 parents living here in my home. They're under hospice care. What happens if one of them dies? She said, well, hospice will come out, and the hospice doctor will pronounce death. And she said, you can call 911, tell them it is not an emergency, it's an expected death. The police will come out, they will do an initial investigation, they'll see the DNR on the door, they'll see all the medical equipment, they'll see
Do not resuscitate.
yeah, DNR, do not resuscitate. It's right there on the door. They'll see the situation, and that will probably be the end of it. And then you can call the funeral director, or you can fill out the paperwork. In reality, what happened was much simpler, as I described this morning. The hospice nurse, these folks who have dealt with death as a profession, as hospice people do, are very adept at seeing the signs of the death process. And they will say, today's the day. And you can gather everybody together, today's the day. When my mother died, the hospice doctor didn't even come out. The hospice nurse notified the doctor that she was dead, and they brought the death certificate to the house. That's all it took. The doctor signed the death certificate.
If they're not in hospice, and this might be a question for everybody, if they're not in hospice, how do they get the death certificate?
Well,
From the doctor?
from the doctor. In our state, it is the doctor who supplies the death certificate because he has to put on there the time of death, the cause of death, and sign it. The rest, pardon?
What doctor? The doctor for the person that's died.
It will be the family doctor. In fact, I think California law, I've got it right here, says family doctor. If they die in the hospital, it'll be a doctor at the hospital, and the death certificate will go with the person down to the morgue. If it's someone who dies at home and they're not in hospice care, it'll be the family doctor.
My father died at home. My mother was caring for him. His death was imminent, and when he did indeed die, the only thing that we needed to do was notify the doctor, and he signed the death certificate because he knew it was coming. And that was very simple, so he didn't go into the system. There was an issue of autopsy and to find cause of death and talk to the family doctor who said, no, we know how he died, he does not need to have an autopsy.
Yep.
So it was really that simple because he had that doctor's care all along.
Right.
So that's my.
So you understand what a death certificate really is. In our state, it's called a vital records form. And it's, the doctor puts time of death, cause of death, and signs it. And the rest of it, the family fills out saying the age of the person, the sex of the person, what their occupation was. It's all demographic data that goes to the Department of Vital Records. They file it, they enter it into their computers. And if you ever wondered where the CDC gets all this data that they put on how people die and why they die and where they die, that's where it comes from. It comes from death certificates. It's a vital records form. In that regard, has not a whole lot to do with the dead person. I mean, with the death itself. But you do need it to prove that the person is dead. So when you take that form to the vital records, or let's see, what is it called here? The local registrar at the county health department is what happens in California. You need to get copies of it. You need probably a dozen copies, certified copies. They don't give you a Xerox copy, and some of the things you're going to need a death certificate for, they'll accept a simple Xerox copy. Others, like insurance and other things, require a certified death certificate. So to really take care of business and closing the estate, you need certified death certificates. So get 10 or a dozen of them probably. It depends on who the person is. I'm still trying to answer your question, Father. Are we doing any good?
So far, I got Cal state laws, what are they?
Yeah. Talk to your coroner.
Lawyer for help on ID these things.
Yep.
2, get your kit together. Quote, Christina. 3, get LA coroner talk, LA County coroner, or in LA County. What do you have to do when someone dies at home? I put as a subset under that question.
Yes.
Then I wrote, get parish file, e-file started on people who are interested in having records kept in a parish level. And then I wrote 5, research transport, and that's as far as I got.
Great.
You didn't say anything about having trained people. When you,
What does that mean?
Do you have kids?
I have 4 children.
You've washed a baby?
They're all adults.
You've washed a baby?
Once,
You're trained. You're trained. Everybody wants to know about training. Everybody wants to. If you have washed a baby, you can do this. Babies are a lot more fragile than dead bodies. They're just bigger. It's the simplest, most natural thing that we do. When it's not, and we will talk. We're going to give you all the training you need this afternoon. We're going to actually talk about what does it take to prepare a body. But let me. Can you help me with Father, getting him what he needs? Do you have parishioners who are not in LA County?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 3 counties.
Someone needs.
LA, Riverside,
There you
San
go.
Bernardino.
So do we. We have 3 counties as well. So
Or Orange County, we got 4 counties.
you may ask someone who lives in that county
Yeah.
to do this for you. Call your county coroner and just hopefully have a chat. I don't know, they may be really busy and not want to talk with you, but, I'm with St. Peter's Church. We're forming a burial ministry. We are Orthodox Christians. Our burial tradition is very much the same as the Jews. And I would like to talk with you about your protocols and what we need to know about your procedures when one of our parishioners dies at home in your county. And see if you can start that conversation. And if you can make an appointment and go down and sit with them, it's great. This all happened over the phone with my coroner, and it was going so well. I said, well, thanks, that's really great. That's a lot of information. Can I ask you another question? I'm out cleaning the gutters, and I fall off the ladder and break my neck. What do we do? And she just walked me through everything. So she was just very, very helpful. Don't be afraid to call the coroner.
So what if in our county, a parishioner doesn't die at home, but dies at a facility? They get elderly care facility, for example.
Or the hospital.
Do we make arrangements with that facility first, or is it the same thing through the county?
You have taken their paperwork. They have that person's last directives rather than last wishes. We call them wishes, but we know they're directives. They have their paperwork on file in that facility, whether it's a nursing home, assisted living, or a hospice. They have it on file. And you've already talked with them. They already know that you're coming. Besides, you've been there. You got somebody in hospice, you're there. You're there like every day. So they know by now, they know what to expect. And usually, again, in the South, we still live with Christians. They're everywhere. It's like crazy. Everybody's Christian.
And 7,000 that haven't been in the bail here as well.
And they're, by and large, really, really impressed that we would even talk with them about these things, much less that we would want to do this. And they're very accommodating, extremely accommodating. It can be a great evangelical ministry besides what we're doing. We've gotten at least one convert from a funeral that we did.
We have
They're
prepared, I'm sorry.
generally very accommodating. You can prepare the body right there in the room. It can be done in a hospital if they know what to expect and they're not so busy they got to have the bed. You can do it in the hospital morgue. You can do it at the hospice. We've prepared many people in their own bed at home, which is kind of optimum. That's where they want to die, and why would we do anything but prepare them right there? And the family can be there, and the family can help, and they're right at home. The subdeacon I talked about, we held vigil there, and he was there for, I think, a couple of days on refrigeration in his bed. And his wife to this day just is gushing in praise for all of this. She's one of our biggest fans, that his grandchildren, who were really quite small, were able to come in and talk to him, say goodbye to him more than once, bring him flowers. It was just, and the public at large is like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
Little children? You're going to expose little children to a dead body? Well, of course, it's their grandfather. And they had all this time to say goodbye and become accustomed to the idea that he's dead.
We'll do a little plug. His psalms are the psalms that we have in
Yes.
our book. It's,
Yes.
What is the name of his
Donald
book?
Sheehan, I don't know, it's in here.
His son is.
I have to look it up, but the service that we use, that we created for this purpose, is in the book, and it's all psalm readings. And he was the head of the Robert Frost Center at Dartmouth College for many, many, many years, and he translated the psalms. And his son, his wife, gave us permission to use his psalms, so that's what's in the book.
How do you do refrigeration at home?
Dry ice. dry it. It's a very, very simple process. We will talk about that as we go. Yes, ma'am.
Do protocols and regulations with the county and coroner offices and things like that, do those tend to be different when there's a minor that has died?
You will have to ask them.
Okay.
That's one we have not run into ourselves. I don't think so.
Okay. I just didn't know
Particularly if the
maybe
parents are involved, particularly if the parents are survivors
Right.
and are going to be the ones giving their permission and directing things. It will, obviously, that would be a tortuous situation for them to have to bury a child. I mean, even burying an adult child is a terrible, terrible thing. Let me talk for a moment about California law. A really good resource is the Funeral Consumers Alliance. These people, for some strange reason, have dedicated themselves to straightening out the funeral industry. They are really, well, not so much straightening out the funeral industry as kind of getting around it, doing away with it. They're the big proponents of home-directed funerals. Understand they are a secular group, so they are very, everything they talk about, there's a lot of talk of cremation on their website, in their book and whatnot, but they have sort of a compendium, a digest of all 50 states and what their laws are. Someone asked this morning, or was it last night, someone asked of the line of succession of people who have the control to make decisions about a body. First in line is the person with a healthcare power of attorney who also has been given the right and duty of disposition. So it can be two different people. The healthcare power of attorney doesn't have to be the death care power of attorney, okay? Or it can be the same person, it's as you wish. Number two is a competent surviving spouse. That was the question last night. Number three is the sole surviving competent adult child of the decedent. And under that same one is or the majority of the surviving competent adult children. Does anyone in here hear the implications of that?
Yes.
They're going to take a vote. Do your paperwork. This is the worst, one of the worst things that can happen. Siblings will fight over mom and dad's remains, and there's nothing you can do about it except tell them in writing, this is the way I want it, and appoint someone to do that, whether it's one of your children or your priest or whoever you want it to be. One of the first things I said this morning, it can cause strife in the family, and it will cause unnecessary stress to your loved ones if you don't give them direction, if you don't tell them this is what I want. One sibling says, well, mom told me she wanted to be cremated, and the other one says, she's Orthodox, she can't be cremated. And it's something you don't need. You do not need that. Number 4 is a surviving competent parent. Number 5, sole surviving competent adult sibling. And then number 6 is the next degree of kinship and on down, depending on who survives. Family can get a blank death certificate from the local health department if they'll give it to you. Again, I said, as I mentioned this morning, some jurisdictions don't like to have death certificates floating around out there. They keep them kind of close. California, like many states, has gone to electronic filing of death certificates. I'm still not clear on how you would then get the burial, removal, and transport permit. You go to the jurisdiction, you file the death certificate, and then they give you a certificate that allows you to transport the body. I think professionals are sort of exempt from the BRT. They have to have one at some point. Because it has to be on file at the final resting place, the place of final disposition. If it's a monastery, they keep a file of BRTs. If it's a cemetery, they have a file of every person who's buried out there. The BRT is actually a good form. You know, no one likes bureaucratic forms, but it's a good form. This is the form that if you're transporting a body from the hospital to the church, you get in an accident or you get stopped by the police for a taillight being out, this is the form that tells the policeman, I'm okay. I am authorized to have a dead body in my car. Okay, so this, you want to have this, and you don't want to transport the body without it. Obviously, professionals may have additional latitude that we don't have, but you really want to have that form if you're going to transport a body. Transporting a body. The local registrar in the county health department will issue a permit for disposition. One copy must be filed with the registrar in the county of disposition, that's wherever the grave is, and one must be returned to the issuing registrar within 10 days. They always give you a lot of time, and I've never understood. You have like 4 or 5 days to file the death certificate, but you have to have the death certificate to transport the body, so you usually want to get it filed pretty quickly if you can. You might find this interesting. Body burial must have 18 inches of earth on top. 18 inches of earth. I still have not figured out where the 6 foot under came from. I haven't read it anywhere. I don't know where that started. In South Carolina, you must have 12 inches of earth on top of the container. That's assuming there is a container, a casket. If you're buried in the ground and there's no container, you can have 12 inches of dirt. Unless burial is in the low country of South Carolina, and then the container can be equal with the top of the earth. That's because of tides.
We buried a guy in our church in Idaho, and we did it the organic way. We buried him. They dug. We had them dig the hole for us at the cemetery, and then we filled it in. They dug it deep. When we lowered that casket, it went down a long way. So maybe
They wanted to make sure he was dead.
It was the old Western 6 feet under. I mean, there was a lot of work to cover that group.
I have
Well, the reason we have that in
another
South.
theory
Hmm?
is to stack them
That's
in the same burial
That's right.
spot.
Yeah, and that's been
You do
done
6
for,
feet down, you could put 2 feet in the
Then
same
too.
burial.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was about.
well, that's covered here too. I didn't go into that, but it says, with a double depth burial, one vault on top of another, at least 12 inches should cover the top. And in Old England, they used to stack them in the grave. In the low country of South Carolina, if you dig down 18 to 24 inches, you got water.
Sure.
So we don't go very deep there. And that's one of the reasons, like in New Orleans, you see a lot of crypt burials above the ground because they're below the water table there. Local municipalities have the jurisdiction over cemetery matters in California. So if you want to establish a cemetery, you need to talk with the local authority, which I assume would be the town, or it says municipalities. In a rural area, it might be the county. We were working with a church up in Pennsylvania, and they ran into a situation where they wanted to establish a cemetery. So they did the right thing, and they went down to the county offices, and they wanted to register their cemetery. And the county had no idea what to do. No one had established a cemetery in that county in over 100 years.
Wow.
And they didn't know what process they should follow. They worked through it, but it was an interesting, I mean, it's not something you do every day, establishing a cemetery, but you can, yes.
Can you bury somebody in your backyard if the county said so, that you could?
Of course.
If in a rural.
If the county says you can,
You live in a neighborhood, probably not.
But they're not-
If you're rural, yeah.
but they're not going to, that's the point. In your local municipality, your town is not gonna say, yeah, it's okay, bury your grandma in your backyard. It's not gonna happen. But theoretically, yes, you could. If you want to establish a family cemetery, draw a map of the property showing where the burial ground will be and take it to the local zoning board and tell them we want to establish a cemetery for our church. It's not an outrageous request, and it will probably be granted if certain things are in line, such as it's not near a water supply and it's not right under a power line or something like that. You probably get approved.
So we could, in theory, maybe even have a cemetery right here on our property?
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
writing it down.
you could. You could establish one here
Imagine that.
if it meets whatever
Because the
criteria.
petition says for all of those who here and everywhere lie in asleep, who here and everywhere. Here, where's the here? It's assuming a church cemetery.
Regulations and not statutes. Understand it, the legislature writes statutes, and generally, we have gotten away from a statutory form of government in America, and we've gone to a regulatory form of government. The legislature writes a statute, and generally, in situations like this, the only thing the statute does is establish an authority who then has the authority to promulgate regulations. Why would we want to do that? Well, if you have a complaint against the regulating authority, you go to your legislature and he says, I don't have anything to do with it, that's the regulating board. Don't blame me. You have to talk to the regulators. And so we've really gotten away from our legislatures actually doing anything that has regulatory power. They give it all to some unelected bureaucrats to enforce and promulgate regulations. But the regulations, not statutes, require that a body be embalmed or refrigerated after 24 hours. If you go to a funeral director, he's going to tell you that body has to be embalmed or it has to be buried within 24 hours. That's because they know that it's going to take more than 24 hours for the family to gather and have a funeral. It usually takes around 3 days. But the regulation says that it must be embalmed or refrigerated within 24 hours. That means you got 24 hours to get it on ice. It doesn't say anything about how long it can be on ice, because you can hire the funeral home, or if you're good friends with your morgue director, he might keep the body a few more days if he has room. And they've done that for us several times. They said, Mark, we don't have a lot of room in the fridge. Yes, but we really need, can you go one more day? And you can do those kind of things. Funeral directors are required, and you have to sign a form that, you have to sign an authorization that discloses that embalming provides no permanent preservation. Okay, just what we said this morning. Embalming is a great big lie, but that language will probably be buried in some form that you're going to sign without reading it when you're arranging for a funeral. That you understand that it's not permanent. If the body is to be shipped by common carrier, it must be embalmed or shipped in an airtight container. Okay? It does not have to be embalmed to be shipped. And this is common carrier. This is not me putting my mother in the back of the van and carrying her down the road, which we have done many, many times. It's not disrespectful. It's ultimately respectful. I carried my own mother. I didn't hire some schmuck to come and do it for me. I carried her to her grave, carried her to her grave, put her in her grave, and filled it myself. It's ultimately respectful to do it that way. Some people, on the other hand, just want to have a hearse. They really do. On the very first time we put this information out for public consumption, one of our parishioners, a doctor, came up and said, there is no way you're carrying me to my grave in a pickup truck. I want a hearse. Fine. You can have a hearse, you can have all the flowers, you can have whatever you want. That's the whole point. The whole point of this is you can have what you want. Understand that if all you want is a hearse, you're going to pay $1,500 or whatever it is in LA, plus the cost of the hearse, plus the driver. You can have whatever you want, just be prepared to pay for it. I'm not going to argue with any family member or anyone. The whole idea is to respect the wishes of the deceased and to respect the bereaved family. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to do the very best we can for everyone. One of the, let's see. Yes, and always remember that one of the best arguments you can use, and it doesn't have to be formed in the shape of an argument, is that, well, how did the Jews do it? You do this for the Jews. We're doing the same thing. And through that education process, they will come to understand what we're doing. You also have a lot of New Agers and old hippies and whatnot who also want a natural burial. It's a big thing, and the form is there, but none of the meaning, none of the understanding of anthropology of what it means to be a human being. It's just protecting Mother Earth and all that stuff, whereas it has nothing so much to do with respect for the human being, which is what we're all about. So we talk.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Quick question. So not that far from here is St. Andrew's Church.
Mhm.
And they, I don't know if you know this, but they actually have a built-in refrigerated chapel on their premises. How, first of all, would that pass for the law? Like, could you, like, as far as the refrigeration requirements? And what is the refrigeration requirement? What is the temperature? Like, could you drop the AC in your church and have that? Like,
You'd have to ask someone. We've never bothered with it because the refrigeration that we use is dry ice.
Oh, okay.
We put the body on dry ice, and as most of us here know, dry ice will keep perishables for a long time. Yes, sir.
Deacon, my wife and I attend St. Andrew, we're on Burial Society, and we do use dry ice. So we do have, the air conditioning unit is separate from the main church, so that we can keep it cool.
Yeah.
We don't rely on it.
Yeah, we don't rely on it.
When you say dry ice, what do you mean? You're just piling dry ice on top of that?
No. Well, we'll talk about it here. We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. And then we pour water on it so that there's all kinds of fog. And you can put lights.
Don't die just before Halloween.
We put lights under the casket and all that stuff. We're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to preparation of the body. You can prepare a body anywhere. We had a parishioner die. I was out of town on my way back in, and Father John started making some arrangements, and he couldn't get in the morgue. I think the morgue just didn't have room. I can't remember exactly. But he ended up calling the funeral director. I said, Father, why did you do that? He said, well, what can I do? I said, Father, bring him to the church. I didn't think about that. We could have prepared him in the parish hall. Of course. It's right there. We just recently did that. You can prepare a body in your parish hall on a table. And the casket's right there, and right here is the nave.
Right.
This is where we're going to hold vigil anyway. So you prepare the body, bring it right in here, and then hold vigil. And it's a beautiful thing to do. You can do it in a funeral home. We have prepared many bodies in the funeral home, believe me. We have how to deal with a funeral director. Yes, please do. She's the one who started all that story. Tell them the whole story.
Well, it started with my dad. And like I said, he was already had dementia. He had a $10,000 casket, which they kept stored for 10 years, so I couldn't send it back. But when his time was coming close, I went and talked to them. And I said, he did this 10 years ago in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. He's Orthodox. We don't even believe in the stuff that you had him buy or fill out. I said, I'm not here begging for any money back. I'm here, I want you to honor his wishes and how we do things. And I said, we don't want him embalmed. We don't need an organ. They want an organist at the chapel and all this stuff. I said, we don't need that.
They would have sold
and they
him
happily
orders.
refunded that. But they seemed like they were really going to work with me until he died. And I went in, and so we started talking, and the guy said, he has to be embalmed.
Wow.
And I said, really? And he said, absolutely, it's the law. He has to be embalmed. I said, show me the law. I said, I want to see the law right now because that's a lie. And I said, are you telling me the truth? He said, no. But
He said no.
Yeah, he said there's no
He
law.
admitted he was lying.
So you lost.
So it's so funny because we had no relationship with the funeral home at that point. So then a very dear friend of ours,
7 years later. Well.
no, it was
Yeah.
very close,
It was.
died, and he was living with his best friend forever and didn't really have any family there. And Sam called and said, I don't know what to do. Can you go help me make funeral arrangements? So I went in, and the guy didn't remember me at first, but he told Sam who wanted to be buried at the cathedral in Washington. Wanted to be buried, have a service there and be buried. And so the first thing he said is, he has to be embalmed. And I said, show me the law. And he said, oh, Mrs. Barna. But since then, we have a pretty good relationship with them, because now they know what we do. Father John has talked to them. We have had several funerals with them involved. So we're not saying you have to totally cut out the funeral home, because a lot of families want partial help with the funeral home. So now we go in, they set us up a room, they give us water, they ask, do you need help? Do you want us to help roll? And they don't charge us for that. You know, is there anything that we can do? Do you need t-shirts? Do you need, whatever? And they have been very helpful. But don't let them lie to you. They lied to our nuns that if you weren't buried within 24 hours, you had to be embalmed. And Mother Thecla really believed that till I finally showed her, no. You don't have to do that. St. Tikhon's believed that. When we were taken,
The monastery in North Carolina.
yeah, and the monastery in North Carolina, they believed that if somebody was crossing state lines, they had to be embalmed, and that's not true. So we had somebody in tears call Mark and Deacon Mark and say, we have to embalm our mother.
Unbound?
That was a,
It was
I mean,
subdeacon
with the bomb.
Donatus.
Huh?
It was the subdeacon that I mentioned earlier.
I thought it was Millie. They had a problem with Millie too.
No, there was no problem with Millie. But the subdeacon that I mentioned earlier, so obviously it was just a couple of days after what I told you about, his daughter-in-law called me at work early one morning in tears. And she said, Deacon Mark, the funeral director, or no, it was the monastery called and said, it's illegal to transport a body across state lines without a funeral director. I said, sweetheart, calm down. Just take it easy. It's a lie. I'll call you back in a few minutes. This is how easy it is to do, folks. Honestly, it's not that tough. I got on the internet. I had never looked at North Carolina funeral law before, but I did. I already knew South Carolina law. I looked to see if there was something weird about North Carolina law. There is not. I printed off the pertinent regulations, highlighted what needed to be highlighted, and scanned it and sent it over to her, called her within probably no more than 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Called her and said, it's in your email box. Don't worry about a thing. Everything you need is there. And obviously, it was true, and everything just calmed out. They had lied to the monastery and told them they can't transport that body up here without a funeral director. And they knew it's not true. They knew that it wasn't true. They just couldn't stand losing a few dollars. We can tell you horror stories like that all day long of what has happened. But the real point of this is that we developed a relationship with the funeral homes because we treat them like a business. Now when Father John calls up either of the main funeral homes in Charleston, they say, oh, Father John, what can we do for you? We tell them what we need,
Exactly.
They provide what we need, and we pay them for what the services that we got. They don't try to sell us anything. They prey on the emotions of the moment, which is the most stressful time in anyone's life when they've lost a loved one.
Yeah.
And they prey on that and they take advantage of it. And it's a really, I'm sorry, like I said, I'm sure there are some reputable ones out there. I just haven't met any of them. Yes, Father.
They can practically reading the Psalms over the body to the funeral. And have you found, are you guys organizing people in the parish to come sign up and
take shifts, or is it usually you and your wife and the priest? Or how does that?
We have not reached that point yet, Father. If you can do that, it's wonderful. So everyone knows the Orthodox tradition is that from the moment of death until the funeral, we read the Psalms around the clock. The book of Psalms is read.
Just think of Holy Friday.
Holy Friday.
To Holy Saturday morning.
And if you have ever done that and been in the church on Holy Friday reading the Psalms over the tomb of Christ, then you know how powerful that is.
We have that in our tradition.
And you know that those are the prayers of Christ. You can hear it, you can feel it. It's right there. And that's the tradition. So if you can do that, if you can organize like you do on Holy Friday to read the Psalms around the clock, it's wonderful. Please do it. We're going to talk about the vigil and the funeral a little bit later, but you definitely want to set the tone for those activities. You want to do that by having the Psalms being read at that time. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, yes.
Deacon, with that in mind, how do we do that practically if the body isn't released? And I agree with you, Father, it's at least 4 days. We had a death that was somewhat close to us that happened, sort of planned, or forgive me, expected. Happened on a Friday. The body wasn't released until Thursday the following week. And so practically speaking, how are we to offer prayers? We can't offer prayers over the body. So just hold that thought. It takes forever to get a body released. At least here, maybe in Southern California, it may not take as long in other areas. The hospital has a morgue. Obviously, there isn't one at home. Do facilities, maybe some facilities have a morgue?
Generally not.
Generally not, okay.
You mean
So-
nursing homes and hospitals like that? Generally not.
So a death occurs at home and you have how much time to call someone? Legally, how much time do you have?
To call someone.
The authorities.
The filing the death certificate, there is a period of time. Let me leave that paperwork with you, I'm not sure. Okay, here it is. Family doctor will sign the death certificate within 15 hours stating the cause of death. The coroner will supply a death certificate within 3 days.
And that's.
So if they're keeping it for 4, that's a little bit long.
Okay, that's for the information that the doctor coordinates with the coroner's office. Okay. And so do the repose then remain at home? If
They
the
can,
death
I
occurs
don't
at
see
home?
why not. I don't think there's any reason for it to be transported. In fact, technically, it's not legal to transport it until you've got a BRT.
So then what do? You have someone that reposes at home.
Mhm.
How do you get them, let's say, okay, so if the
You can do
mortuary gets
that.
involved,
You
then the
can-
mortuary has somehow jurisdiction?
Well, a mortuary can, I think they probably have more latitude. These are questions you need to ask the coroner and other people who are involved, hospital, all of these things. You might even want to talk to a funeral director about
What we
that.
did in Seattle when we buried Father Thomas Davis is we had to bring clergy from all over the Pacific Northwest. They wanted to be there, so it was delayed. So what the priest did at St. Paul Church is they made an arrangement with the mortuary just to rent refrigerators.
Yes.
They pay only, we only want this service.
Yeah,
We're
you
just
can do
gonna
that.
buy a refrigerator space.
Yeah.
So they dickered with them to get just that. And of course, they were like, well, you want this one? No, we don't even need transport. We'll take care of everything. Just give us refrigerator space.
Yeah.
And we did that. And when I arrived there, we prepared his body there just outside the refrigerator. They gave us a just gratis, a space to do that before we put it in his coffin.
So practically speaking, you can't offer those prayers between time of death, the continuous prayers between time of death and time of burial.
We haven't accomplished it yet anyway. And especially if it's going to be 4 days, it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
The only time that I've actually seen it was Archbishop Dimitri's funeral, where for a bishop, you read the Gospels around the clock. And there were priests, bishops, deacons, and parishioners from all over the world were there pitching in and reading, and they did that for 4 days. Speaking of, since it's up, let's talk about refrigeration. You can rent a funeral director's refrigerator. Not all funeral directors have a refrigerator. Most hospitals will have a morgue. You can talk with them about that possibility. If you meet a friendly morgue director and who has more refrigerator space than he needs, he might be happy to help out, especially if he's a Christian and thinks this is a really good idea.
They always put them in the basement. So
Yes.
if you get lost, go down to the
Yeah,
basement.
they're in the basement and they're on the alley. They're not in the front, they're out the back on the alley. People don't like to see hearses pulling up to hospitals, all the time. So there's that form of refrigeration. What we do is dry ice. We're going to talk about the preparation of the body for burial here in a little bit, but I somehow always forget about the dry ice anyway, so it's a good time. We'll get it out of the way first. On the way to the preparation of the body, where we live, you can get dry ice at the supermarket. I don't know about here. You can? Good. If for some reason you can't, you want to look for an industrial gas supplier. The guys who supply oxygen and carbon dioxide to the hospitals and industrial operations, they have dry ice. Dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide. It does not melt. It sublimates directly from a solid into a gas. There's no liquid involved. The only liquid would be condensation. So I usually run by the supermarket with a styrofoam cooler, not a plastic cooler. The stuff is so cold, it will break the plastic. So you have to use a styrofoam cooler. I always pick up a handful of paper bags, not plastic bags. Again, it will break the plastic, shatter it, actually, literally. Paper bags. And when we have finished the preparation of the body, ours comes in blocks about this big. I'll take one whole block, put it in, take it out of the plastic bag that it's in, put it in a paper bag. We just don't like burying plastic in the ground, okay? So we try to, it's a green burial, so we're trying to be green. Take it out of the plastic bag, put it in a paper bag, put the paper bag in the bottom of the casket or coffin, and then place the body right on top. And we try to locate it right in the small of the back, because what we want to do is refrigerate the main organs. That's where decomposition is going to start, and the main thing we're concerned about is odor. Everything we do is to honor the deceased and comfort the family. The last thing we want to happen is to have any odor or any leakage from the body. So we're always on the lookout for anything that might cause any sort of embarrassment for the deceased or for the family. Then we'll take about a half of one of those blocks in a paper bag and put it on the sides inside the coffin. And then if we have room before we close the coffin, we'll take another block or another good sized piece and put it right here. If we have any reason to suspect that there might be any leakage from the head, because you have a lot of orifices up here, we can put a little bit, a much smaller bit under the head, under a pillow, just to refrigerate the head. Then we transport the body to the church. We get the body to the church, and when the casket is open for a service, we take the dry ice that's visible here and here. We take it off, put it in a styrofoam cooler underneath the stand that the casket is on, and it's gone. It's out of view for services. When the service is over, we put it back on and cover the body nicely. It's become my practice to just use my vestments. I take my vestments off, I cover the body with my vestments, just because they look nice. You know, they're nice vestments, and it just looks good there. And there's a big cross on them and everything. It looks appropriate for the purpose. And then, whether it's in the morning or whenever we come back for the next service, you know, people can reverence the body. The casket's open. It's all there. We're reading the Psalms. When the next service starts, we'll come in, take the dry ice off where that's visible, put it back, the same routine. Take my vestments off, shake the ice off my vestments, and put them on and serve the service.
Do you not
That's
use
refrigeration.
burial shroud? You don't use a burial shroud? Okay.
If the person wanted a burial shroud, yes. And as I mentioned this morning, we like to keep a baptismal garment on hand at the church for emergencies or for anyone who might want one. Again, we don't talk about money. It's there. You want to use it, use it. You want to make a donation for it, make a donation for it. Father John and I both just have a real negative reaction to money changing in the church. Yes?
So do I understand that from time of repose till they go to church for the Thusarium, that you can legally keep someone in your home?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure you can. The only thing you can't legally do is transport the body without the appropriate paperwork. But yeah, there's no reason. Subdeacon Donatus was at his house 3 or 4 days, wasn't it? We have literally, as you said this morning, we've transported people all over the place. You mentioned Millie. Millie was a beloved matriarch of the church, and when she died, she already had her plot at St. Tikhon's Monastery in Pennsylvania. We're in Charleston, South Carolina. So her 3 daughters, right? It was the 3 daughters. You never would have thought. Here's another instance. I never would have thought. Obviously I misjudged them. My wife says she wouldn't have either. I never would have thought these 3 ladies would want to do this. But they showed up at the morgue. We prepared her mother in the morgue. They showed up there. When you go to a morgue, as I said, you can prepare a body anywhere. If you do it in the morgue, you have to be prepared. You're going to be asked to observe universal precautions. The healthcare people know what that means. Everyone else, it means you're going to wear a head covering, you're going to wear a mask, you're going to probably a face shield, plastic, you're going to have to put on a mask, you're going to wear gloves, a gown, and booties on your feet. You're going to be completely covered. That's the way hospitals operate. That's called universal precautions. You're protected universally from just about anything that might happen. In the home, we don't do any of that. Sometimes we don't even use gloves. Most of the time, I don't even use gloves when I'm preparing someone in their home, unless there is a reason for it. So be prepared for that. But these 3 ladies came in there and they said, we said our prayers. We all got suited up. Father said the prayers. We got ready. And I walked up to the table and I felt the hand go like this. And she said, we've got this. You tell us what to do. And these 3 ladies prepared their mother for burial. But never would have expected that.
We had one lady, Olga, she's the real matriarch that was at our church forever. We called her the Energizer Bunny because she was in her 90s and almost died I don't know how many times. We kept a casket for her so long, we had to use it for Peter and then replace it. But we had her casket at our house for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But her daughter, we prepared her in the nursing home where she was. And it was so powerful that when her sister came in from California, she said, can we do it again? Can we do it again? And Father John said, well, I can't be there to help you. You ladies are going to have to do it on your own. And we did. And I showed them what to do and I read. And so of course, I would stop and help them. But she felt like it was so powerful that she just wanted her sister to experience that also.
Yeah. And that goes to Theophile's earlier question about having a men's team and a women's team. It's a wonderful thing. That was the first time that we were able to accomplish that, to actually have all women preparing a woman for burial. And that was because I was out of town and couldn't be there, and they just did it. And it was a beautiful thing, and I'm really, really happy we've been able to get to that point. You may not be there to start with. It's not required. It's perfectly okay for men to prepare women and women to prepare men. We've done it many times. There's nothing awful about it or weird about it, because if it's all done with prayer and love.
I can't remember who mentioned it to me, but I asked the question about preparation, And it was explained to me that only a portion of the body is uncovered at a time.
Yes.
Only a portion, like the arm, to be washed, and then that's covered, and then maybe this part, the hip or something.
Well, we'll
So
talk
you
about
never
that
have
next.
You
Yeah.
never have a whole naked person in front of you.
Let's take a 5 or 10 minute stretch.
Just
And,
a stretch, don't disappear,
yes.
because otherwise I'll never get to get you back.
Then come back and we will talk about the preparation of the body. We'll get into the nuts and bolts.